Hey guys, this is Naman. I'm the founder of Reference. We are making a market network of freelancers and agencies. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic in a freelancer's life, that is how to collect leads. We've discussed this partly before in another video. So today, we are going to dig deeper into understanding why do clients not pay on time. We've listed down 6 reasons and we'll dive deeper into each of these reasons. Reason number one is that the client is used to stretching the payment timeline as long as possible. They don't feel the urgency to pay and they think that by delaying your payment, they can improve their own cash flow situations. So with such clients, the only way out is to incentivize them. In large B2B businesses, there is generally a clause around paying on time and penalty if you don't pay on time, or there are some kinds of incentive if you pay early. You have to adopt a similar situation where you can offer the client anywhere between 2 to 5% discount if they pay on time. See, the whole idea of applying penalty is not going to work because you are generally a smaller business. But if you apply the system of giving them incentive where you actually tell them, if you pay on time, you'll offer discount, that works out great with such clients because then they now have some kind of urgency to act faster. Reason number two is there are clients who don't have time to pay you. You are not on their priority list. They don't want to delay the payment, but there are some things that they need to figure out before they can pay you, and you're not on their priority list. So with such clients, what you need to do is make it very easy for them to pay. As in, send them an email that they can forward to their finance department. If you're following up on WhatsApp, make sure you send a message in a way that they can clearly see, what needs to be paid, how much, for what, when, your account details, etc. So that they can delegate that work. A lot of times, when you're following up with somebody very senior, they don't want to take the hassle of writing the message. They don't want to take the hassle of telling you that please send a message in a way that it can be forwardable. But if you can do that, it will increase the chances, maybe reduce the time period by a couple of days and reduce this whole, going back and forth hassle. The third reason why clients don't pay on time is that they have a serious cash flow issue. Now, this you can detect very early on, or if you go through a referral to this client, you would know that whether the client has cash flow issues or not. A lot of times, companies are in growth mode where they think that their cash flow issues will be solved in the months to come. They've already hired you, the work is delivered after 3 months, but by that time the client's cash flow issue has in fact deteriorated instead of improving. Maybe their release cycle is late or their funding is stuck, something like that. In such a situation, you should not delay. Try and settle the accounts as soon as possible with this client, even if you have to offer them some hefty discount. If you suppose you are receiving few lakh rupees, reduce it by like half and get whatever is possible in your account, because the situation will only worsen from here. The idea here is to incentivize the client to act faster, and because you are competing with other freelancers and agencies for the same amount that this client has in the bank. So you need to maybe follow up more, give higher incentive, and all this while make sure you are very, very polite. So the idea is to collect whatever is possible right now, and then also send a clear message to the client that rest will be collected when their situation improves. In such a situation, the winning factor would be if your relation is very strong, this client will end up giving you some very good referrals, even though their situation is bad, but they may end up giving you some very good referrals. I've seen situations where one founder, they default on the payments to their freelancer, but this founder gets acquired by another larger company. This guy becomes like VP of some department there, and now they end up hiring you again and with better cash flows. So you don't want to lose on such chances. The fourth reason is very similar to the second reason we discussed. This is around logistical issues. There is an information gap between the client and you. They don't know when you need to get paid, why are you getting paid. Imagine this is a very large client and there are different departments. Somebody else hired you, somebody else is responsible for approving your payments, and then there is a third department that is responsible for actually releasing your payments. I'll give you an example that happened with me about 10 years ago. We had a very large client and they were paying all their dues on time, so there was absolutely no problem. But with one of the invoices, we were never like following up. We thought the payments are always coming on time, so there is no need to follow up. With one of these payments, what happened is we checked after about 60 days that the payment hasn't come in. We casually dropped in an email to the guy who was our point of contact, and he said, I'll follow up with the accounts department. The accounts department basically did not bother to reply. After a few days, again, we followed up with the accounts department. They said we've already paid for this invoice, and we forwarded it to our accounts department. They said we've not received the payment. Again, few days of back and forth. Finally, we asked their account department to see if there is a debit. What was the mode of the payment, and if there is a debit in their account. They said the mode of the payment was check, and there is no debit yet. After a few days of again back and forth, what we realized is they gave the check to a person who had moved on from the company, and this person left the check in their work desk, and nobody knew about it. Nobody checked for it, right? And after this was like 100 days after the bill was due, that we actually came to know of the reason, right? And this is like very, very silly. There are other things like your email landing in spam. When you are sending a message, you are sending to the wrong phone number, and there's nobody replying. You think that the client has ghosted you, but basically the client doesn't even know who you are, right? And these are very small logistical issues, but this happened quite often. I have personally delayed invoices where I don't find the GST number mentioned properly, the PAN card number mentioned properly. I don't know where to pay. Simple thing like if there is a UPI ID mentioned on a small invoice, I tend to pay faster versus when there is, say, a bank account, right, where I'm required to add beneficiary, etc. So if you can reduce these logistical issues for the client, your invoices will start getting paid faster, and maybe few days reduction in the total timeline of the payment. The fifth reason for why clients don't pay on time, and this is very, very important, the reason is that they did not find your service worth paying for. They are having a tough time working with you. They are having even a tougher time giving you a clear feedback. In this case, after the invoice is raised or after the work is completed from your end, if you think you can solve something, you are too late. So the idea is to nurture that relation, not only as a worker, but also as an account manager, where you are collecting constant feedback from the client and inculcating those feedback in your final service that you are providing. And you would know this by how interactive the client is. If you think the client is replying to your drafts on time, or if you think the client is correcting something, if you're meeting the client regularly, generally the relation will be smooth and they'll find it easier to give you feedback. But if you are going to do it all at the end, then the feedback mechanism will be actually the payments. They will delay the payment, and that is their way of giving feedback. Let's say somebody hired you to create a landing page for 10,000 rupees, right? And you went about doing it, the page is all live, but the client is not happy with it. The client is not happy, and maybe they tried to give you this feedback during the work, but you were not receptive enough. Now that the page is live and it is not performing as expected, they are not sure if they should be paying you. Or sometimes you were required to create a pitch deck, but you actually responded so late that there is no time for revision. Now that pitch deck was useless for the client. In such cases, the idea is to actually create, build a relation that it is, open for feedback, and hence you wouldn't have this problem while the payout needs to be done. If you've already are in this situation where you think, okay, and you would know, as a service provider, you would know that you've not done justice to the client, and if you're already in this situation, maybe offer an upfront discount to the client. I freelanced for a while, after my last startup, and there was a contract for 3 months with this client for a fixed fee. During that 3 months, I took few leaves, for leisure and for my family, and that is where I realized that these leaves shouldn't have been taken. If I was on the client side, I wouldn't have liked, if I'm on a fixed contract for 3 months and I'm taking like a 4 or 5 days leave. So I offered the client to work an extra month for the same compensation. And that, I think, and because I was upfront about it and I proactively reached out to the client saying I will do this, I think our relation is still maintained, and they actually gave me 2 more clients after that. So if you do this, you will never have this problem of the money getting stuck. See, the idea in the early days is to actually grow and build your network and not have like negative feedback from anyone, right? And if you are, receptive of this feedback, you will never fall in this situation where the client is using delay of payment as a method of giving you feedback. The last reason for why clients don't pay on time is basically they don't have an intention to pay. Now, I've worked with an agency where they would hire freelancers as voiceover artists, and they would always default on the payments. And every time a voiceover artist followed up on the payment, they would move on to another voiceover artist. They would simply ghost that freelancer, they would move on to another freelancer. There, if you're already in this situation, there is no way out. I mean, the only thing you can do is maybe help other freelancers not get into the situation. Maybe do a background check on the client. Maybe talk to vendors who actually work with this client. Is this client used to paying on time or not? But if you're already on this situation, and you will face this situation, maybe with few clients every year, where you'll think that this guy actually had no intention to pay, and these situations are where they could just pay you the advance amount on time but not pay the rest of the amount at all, and there would be no clear feedback. They would be simply unapproachable, or your time in the follow-up will be so high that you will want to give up. And it is okay to give up on such clients. The only way to safeguard is go through a referral check with the client and pick up these signs very early on. If the client is not involved enough, or if the client is not bargaining enough, if I quoted a very high price to the client and the client is not even bargaining, I would pick that up as a negative signal, saying maybe he doesn't even have an intention to pay. Maybe he's going to delay my payment infinitely, so he's not bothered about how much I'm quoting. So those were the 6 reasons why clients don't pay on time. I would love to understand your experience of what kind of client ghosting you've experienced, and maybe put them out on the comments, and we'll talk more about it. Thank you.